And one of the things that stands in the way of our fulfillment is the behavior of others around us.
Let's talk about jerks at work. So, who just popped into your head when I said that? Come on now, somebody's face just showed up on your mental screen. Who is it? I'm Dr. Joey Fawcett, coaching you to grow people and profits by creating a work-positive culture, and I'm not a jerk, but I was earlier in my career. Fortunately, I got over myself. I grew some emotional intelligence with the help and coaching of some amazing mentors and friends, people who saw in me what I couldn't see in myself that was worth greening up. Man, I'm so grateful for them. My guest today is here to talk about jerks and how they can rule a work culture if we let them, and how it only takes one jerk to ruin a work positive dream team, and how most of us rather ignore a jerk than confront one. But that's not an option if your goal is to attract top talent and keep them on the team. He wrote a new book, The 1 Minute Jerk at Work. So go get your favorite jerk, tell them, you need to listen to this. Okay, no, don't do that. Instead, lean in, listen up, and learn how to best deal with your work jerk on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. So Work Positive Nation, I'm sure that you've still got that person running through your head that I just prompted you to think about, right, in the introduction. If you're by yourself and listening to this podcast, feel free to call names. Otherwise, keep it to yourself, because somebody's going to be listening at work and they're going to say, you just called my name. Why'd you do that? Well, I know Rich Salon, and Rich Salon is no jerk at work. In fact, he's an amazing gentleman who puts service before self every single time. So, Rich, I am so excited to have you back on the Work Positive Podcast. Welcome, my friend.
Well, it's great to be back, and thanks for all you do, Dr. Joey.
It's my pleasure. I enjoy doing it every day. I especially enjoyed getting a copy of this book, The 1 Minute Jerk at Work. Now, at the risk of giving you an opportunity to call names, there are names in the book, but the names have been changed to protect the guilty. Am I right?
Exactly. They are just personas. They're a common first name paired with a offensive work behavior, such as Nasty Graham Nate or condescending Connie, as an example. But again, they're just fictitious characters.
Yeah, exactly. But they are amazing caricatures of people that we have all worked with. And as I said in my introduction, Rich, I'll confess it right up front, man. I was a jerk at work early on in my career. And fortunately, I had some great mentors and coaches who helped me get over myself, get out of my own way, so that this is one more, I guess I should say, recovering jerk, as opposed to recovered, because it's a process, right? So what really fixated your attention enough to write a book on the 1 minute jerk at work?
No, thanks for asking. And I've been a career HR leader in corporate America, large companies. Some gave me responsibility for up to 20,000 team members. And so you can imagine the quantity of complaints and allegations I've had to respond to after, looking into.
Hmm.
And it's amazing. Somebody can ruin your day in less than 60 seconds. But the good news is you don't have to let them.
Yeah.
And so the 1 minute jerk at work goes a little deeper than just we're going to classify that as inappropriate behavior. And the type of behaviors, including manipulation, intimidating. I mentioned the Nasty Gram writer, the condescending team member, the bully, 26 different personas. Again, fictitious characters. But, in the spirit of career fulfillment, what each of us craves is we want to be successful, but we also want to find fulfillment from
Hmm.
our work.
Hmm.
And one of the things that stands in the way of our fulfillment is the behavior of others around us, whether that be somebody who works for us, it's possible,
Hmm.
a peer, it could be our boss. It could be somebody outside the organizational chain. It could be a
Hmm.
supplier. It
Yeah.
could be a customer of the company or a client of the company. So, you know, inappropriate behavior, what I call jerk behavior, just it erodes confidence, it erodes morale. It can damage somebody's self-respect, and it can absolutely hurt somebody's level of career fulfillment. The
Oh, yeah, for sure.
challenge that brings, it just not only hurts the person's performance, but it can also hurt the performance of their department or their division or their company. So bad behavior at work really is something that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, the thing that amazes me is the negative effect they have on culture, which moves us away from efficiencies and productivities, actually reduces profits. But we excuse this behavior so many times rather than having the difficult conversation to say, hey, Dr. Joey, here's how you come across. What are some of the fears that keep us from having those challenging conversations with jerks?
Well, some people feel that hope is a strategy, and they simply hope it will go away on its own.
Yeah.
Other people are a little hesitant on confronting somebody,
Hmm.
and the word confront doesn't have to be as strong as it sounds, but helping the person understand.
Hmm.
Each of us would agree that we're time starved and say, I can't deal with that person today. I know they have to be dealt with. I just can't do it today,
Hmm.
which is not a great it's not a great not a great excuse, but a lot of factors go into when they say I'm not going to do it, whether that's consciously or subconsciously. A
Hmm.
lot of reasons.
Yeah, and some of it may be genuine in that, my energy level's low today, or didn't get enough sleep last night or something like that. But we kick that can down the road so often, or we use an excuse like, well, Joey's our best salesperson. He outsold the rest of the team last year. So we just got to tolerate that jerk behavior. But one of the things Josh Friedman and others have helped me understand around emotional intelligence is that I can set aside my need to please people or the excuses that I make, like Joey sells more than anybody else, to say, hey, the right thing to do here, the due north, the magnet that I need to follow, is to have that conversation with Joey. And one of the things I really appreciate about your book is that you include in this book an opportunity. I mean, here are blank lines in here for me to write about. There's a question to consider that helps me unpack what I just read in that story and to actually the easiest jerks for me to address, the most challenging jerk I need to help change. So there are action steps in this book and actually provided space for me to interact with the book so that I can move forward in dealing with a jerk.
Yeah, and one of the beauties is helping the person. They may have no idea that they're doing it. If it's condescending Connie or nasty Graham Nate or dirty look Dan, they may not know it. So you may be the first person bringing it to their attention.
Mm,
And what you've done is you've reached out to the person. You've given the person an opportunity to fix the behavior. There's a high probability that will be in your favor because they will likely want to return the favor. So it's a
mm,
good thing in the spirit of helping people.
yeah,
And like your show is, work positive today. You want to keep a positive environment, you know, get it on the table. Help the
yeah.
person understand. And again, you're helping the person. Yes, you're helping yourself, but I think we all go to work for more than just to help ourselves. We go to work to help others.
Mm,
And this is a great way to help the person understand, whether it's the first time or the third time or the fourth time that they're hearing it. The hope is that they'll get it and they'll appreciate it along the way.
yeah, and I don't know about you, Rich, but sometimes I have to hear things or I choose to need to hear things three times just to say, okay, that hit my awareness differently. Now, besides bringing it to their awareness, it looks like to me there's an amazing opportunity to create a positive work culture and to help that person find some action steps away from that jerk behavior. How have you seen that work?
Absolutely. it's a normal tendency to tell the person what to do, define the action steps for the person, but ask questions of the person. Let them come to the solution.
Mm,
I believe if they create the solution, they create the action steps, they're going to be much more inspired to move forward. So
100%.
again, they own the actions, but if you want to increase the chances of them executing, coming through, let them come up with it. And I would say probably 9 times out of 10, they're gonna come up with a viable plan to fix the problem they created. If they get off course a little bit, guess what? You steer them back on course a little bit, get them back in the
Right.
game.
Right.
That's okay. But again, 9 times out of 10, I think they're gonna come up with their own viable plan that works for them.
Exactly. I think that's one of the things that paralyzes us sometimes in having these difficult conversations, trying to raise awareness of the jerk that, hey, he or she's being a jerk, right? Is that I think I got to fix them after I bring it to their attention. When, to your point, great coaches and great managers who are coaches ask powerful questions that facilitate really the creation of their own action plan.
I agree. We naturally want to jump in and just give the person the plan, just give them some suggestions. But again, we want to increase the ownership that they take on
Mm,
the plan and the action steps. Let them come up with this. It's like
absolutely.
General Patton. General Patton was very, very
Uh-huh.
much revered. He has an old popular saying that said, "Don't tell a person how to do something. Let them figure out how to do it. They will surprise you with their ingenuity." And I believe that for
I do
as
too.
long as I've remembered that.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, only rocket science is rocket science.
And brain
Everything
surgery,
else
right?
is pretty pretty simple.
Yeah. Well, and that comes down to a culture of trust, right? Do I trust you enough to own the situation once it comes to your attention and then to create the pathway towards resolution of that? How do I communicate this anti-jerk or non-jerk culture to people who are top talent that I want to attract to my team? Because let's face it, they may have just left or be leaving a team that's filled with jerks. How do I communicate a non-jerk culture to someone with whom I'm speaking about joining our team?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great point. I think you really focus on, respect is big. Respect is incredibly important here
Mm,
at our organization. Again, only rocket science is rocket science. We're going to get this thing done. We're going to meet our objectives through collaboration, working together respectfully, professionally. It's important to our fabric, and
mm,
it's probably written in the company's ethics or the company's code of conduct you can refer to. And you can also remind people if they're considering joining your team, they're newly joining your team, here's what we've done.
mm,
Not here's what Bobby's done, here's what Lisa's done, here's what Jimmy's done, here's what we've done as a group. And you
mm.
continue to portray, we did this as a team, working together collaboratively to try and get the best possible work product. And we used people's new ideas, mix in with some old ideas, the company's culture, which is really the secret sauce. And this is what we got done as a team. Now,
Yeah,
impressing that into a person in their first 90 days, to me, can go a long way. They need to
yeah.
understand it's not a team of individuals. They may look like a group of individuals when you survey the work area, but the work product comes from the teamwork.
Mm, mm. And that suggests a commitment to mutuality and mutual benefit on the team. It suggests, as I described to you a moment ago, service before self. I mean, it's just an amazing
Absolutely.
cultural uh, thermostat that you're setting for that person as you bring them to the team. Okay, let's say somebody says, yeah, that's the kind of place I want to work, and they join your team. And then after they get comfortable on the team, some of this jerky behavior begins to rear its head, and yet they're top talent. How do I early on in this process have that conversation?
You know, you don't do the person any favors if you don't address it.
Oh, wow.
From
Say that again. Say that again for the people on the back row because that's huge.
Yeah, it's you're not doing anybody any favors if you just let it go by, if you
Mm.
let it go on. Now, I believe the best method is the one size fits one. You can't employ a one size fits all when you're developing team members in an area and an environment of respect. So it all depends. How often is this a one-time occurrence? Is this frequent? Is this a pattern? And
Mm.
seeking to understand why. Where is this coming from? Any
Mm.
chance that the person is just modeling the behavior of a leader within the organization that
Mm.
we just haven't noticed before? Is it possible that they brought this behavior from a former employer
Yes.
because they saw that that was successful?
Mm.
So peel back the onions, seek to understand why is the person acting out this way. Bring it to their attention and determine the right person. Maybe it's the boss and the person. Maybe there's a human resources person involved. Maybe I might consult, my boss. Hey, boss, you got a minute? So I'm about to have a conversation this afternoon with our new team member. And what are your observations? Validate the concerns that you have the best you can, and then determine, using the one size fits one methodology, how you're going to approach the person.
Mm.
Now, I always suggest don't go in there with a notebook and a pad of paper. Don't go in automatically, with a written document. You know, myself, the person, a nice clean desk is a great start. And have a conversation in a manner, in an environment where the person doesn't feel threatened, the person won't feel defensive, and have the conversation. From a timing standpoint, be sensitive as well. It's not one of those conversations you have on Friday after 3 o'clock or any other day during the week after 4:30.
Yeah, yeah.
Make the time, make the time for it.
Mm.
But make the person feel comfortable and understand this is the person's time. It's not the boss's time, it's the team member's time.
Right. And so,
To,
how are
to
they going to best hear this message and gain greater awareness about how they're coming across? When is that day part? When is that time?
Absolutely. The sentence that begins with a famous three words, help me understand, and it which is pretty neutral. It's not accusing the person
Mm.
out of the gate.
Hmm.
But what you might get from that question, help me understand, you, wow, that makes sense. That may change your plan for the rest of the conversation.
Mm.
Um, but it's but you get the person to talk out of the gate.
Get them opening up. Let me ask you a question. What if the key to growing your work culture hides in plain sight? Take the free Work Positive Culture Assessment to discover it. Get insights in less than 4 minutes that transform your culture so you grow people and profits. You just answer 13 simple questions and discover your culture stage, strengths, and personalized next steps. Get your free aha culture moment at workpositive.today. Go to workpositive.today right now. Rich Salon is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. This is his book, new book, The 1 Minute Jerk at Work. There's a link in your show notes to go right over to Amazon and get your copy. So, Rich, I got to ask you, I know this is like asking you to choose between your children, but hey, man, which jerks are your favorite that you wrote about in this book?
Oh gosh, yeah. There's there's too many. I would tell you,
Well, I know you said 26, but narrow it down and name a name here.
if I had to, micromanaging Maria and Nasty Graham Nate are two of my favors because I just despise micromanagers.
Hmm.
The ones who just want to control everything you do. They want to tell you how to do it, when to do it. Just the opposite of General Patton's famous line.
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of micromanaging, like I'm not a fan of, command and control. And Nasty Graham Nate, who wants to burn off an email to the person in a hostile tone and, conveniently copy, two or three of the person's superiors. And then all of a sudden, you got to unscramble the egg
Yeah.
when all Nate had to do, is just walk over to the person saying, I don't get it. I don't get what you did. I don't understand. I don't understand, what gives, what's going on. But
Right.
instead, Nasty Graham Nate just annihilates the person over an email.
Hmm.
And then, while that email may have taken 4 or 5 minutes to generate, it's going to take the next 4 or 5 days
Yeah.
to unravel, to
Or
show.
years. Yeah, right.
Yeah, to
But
no,
you reminded me of something. I think it was Phillips that wrote a book, Lincoln on Leadership, talking about Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln had this habit of sitting down, and this was before email, and writing a letter to his adversaries, those persons that considered him an enemy, or he would consider enemy, people saying things about him that weren't true and were nasty grams, right? He would sit down and write them a letter and tell them exactly what he thought. Then he would fold that letter up, put it in an envelope, seal it, and put it in a desk drawer, never mailing it or having it delivered. So it had that cathartic effect for him of saying what needed to be said. He got it off his chest, but it didn't create the kind of collateral damage that you're talking about there with Nasty Graham Nate. Today, though, sending an email is so much faster. I mean, you sit down and you type at the speed of light, and then it's so much easier to push send. What do I need to say to myself if I sense that need to say those kinds of things like Nasty Graham Nate, but will keep me from a scorched earth policy?
absolutely, absolutely. There's a visual that I have. It's Joseph Stalin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Winston Churchill. They're sitting on a bench together, and it was on the island of Yalta, and it was the final peace talks to end World War II. And a photographer caught a million to one photograph. He caught those three gentlemen sitting on the bench next to each other in a smile, in a laugh, like somebody told a joke and he got the shot. And when I think of
Wow.
that picture, I say to myself, never underestimate the power of a little chat.
Mm,
That's simple. It's amazing what can be done, what problems can be solved, potentially feelings, that may have been hurt can be resolved with a little chat. Again, I hate to use the rocket science analogy again, but it
yeah,
is so simple. And
yeah.
all the world's great ideas, I believe, began with a little chat.
Mm,
So just talking through it,
right.
exchanging opinions and ideas.
Yeah.
That's the way stuff gets done.
It really does. It really does. So, what are some of the challenges that keep us from having those little chats in our work culture?
Yeah, it's the time I'm too busy.
Okay.
If I do make the time to have that chat, I'm gonna have to give up something else. That's an easy excuse. The other thing is there could have been a past instance where they did approach a problem
Mm,
and it went south. They could have
mm,
been criticized, for their allegations, right, wrong, or indifferent. The boss did not see the same side as the team member making the complaint. So there are some potential apprehensions. The other thing is, you know, maybe it's the culture of the company. The
Yeah.
person's demonstrating the same behavior that the people above them have demonstrated for years. So they're fighting an uphill battle. And
Mm.
some people might say, I know I need to deal with this. I need to help Johnny, but unfortunately, it's going to have to be a battle for another day. I don't have it in me. I tried before. I'm 0 for 1. Do I want to be 0 for 2?
Yeah.
Instead of 1 for 2. So there's a lot of different factors that go into somebody's reluctance. But the core of the book is inspiring the person. They're
Mm.
not doing themselves a favor. They're not doing the other person a favor. They're certainly hurting the work environment of their team members. They're possibly giving the whole department sense of a false sense of security that things are going okay.
Mm.
So it needs to be addressed.
Mm.
And typically it's not something that's hidden. It's out there, typically in verbal communication, sometime in written, sometime in nonverbal, like, dirty look Dan. Me with dirty look Dan. Dan, what gives? What did I do? What did I do today? And Dan says, yeah, nothing. Why? Well, I was walking by, for the third time in a couple of days, and you gave me this pretty nasty scowl, big guy. And Dan says, yeah, I didn't mean it. Enjoy working with you.
Yeah. May not even be
Maybe
aware
it caught
he's
me.
coming across
Maybe I
that
just had a
way.
bad day. Maybe I
Yeah.
just had one of those could have been the time I just came out of a meeting with my boss that, didn't go so well.
Mm. Yeah.
The accidental scowl.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the boss, what if my boss is the jerk, Rich? How do I mean, they can say grace over whether or not I continue working with the company. How do I deal with that?
Yeah, naturally very, 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 very sensitive because the boss to subordinate relationship, that's where the magic happens. That is crucial, and there is a chance that you could set off the boss by bringing something to his or her attention because they don't expect it. They don't typically expect feedback from their subordinates. They
Yeah.
expect it from people above,
Mm.
possibly human resources, but typically their boss or their boss's boss. So I advise before you confront your boss, you'd be wise to take a partner. Now, a
Okay.
partner could be a coworker that you trust. Partner could be that human resources person. A partner could be the person's boss if you
Mm.
have a good relationship with that person. If you
Right.
trust that person to listen intently and seek to understand versus automatically going and jumping down their person's throat.
Yeah.
So it depends. It is completely one size fits one, but
Mm.
it needs to go addressed. Just like your coworker, the colleague that works next
Mm.
cubicle over, the person you talk to several times a day based on close proximity. You talk to your boss several times a day in many cases. So they may not be aware of what they're doing.
Mm.
It may be a blind spot,
Yeah, very
or it
well
could be a
could.
reminder of some coaching that they've received in the past, possibly.
Hmm. May not be
But
the first time they've
do your
heard it.
boss, yeah, do your boss a favor because if you're feeling some discomfort based on how your boss is treating you in an unprofessional manner, there's could be some likelihood that they're treating your peers, your coworkers, the remaining team members the same way.
Yeah,
So
it's
take one
beyond
for the team.
your
Step
experience.
forward.
Yeah, well, I love that partner there for lots of reasons. It's not that you're trying to gang up on them or anything, but just someone to make sure what you say is heard by more than one person is oftentimes helpful. And that help me understand phrase when you're when you're supervising me, when you're giving me feedback, help me understand what you meant when you said blah, 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 blah. I think that's highly instructive. So the 1 Minute Jerk at Work is the book that we're talking about. Rich Salon is my guest in this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. Go down in the show notes and click that link, go over to Amazon, and when you're buying your favorite coffee or whatever it is that you're buying, pick yourself up a copy of the 1 Minute Jerk at Work. And again, one of the things I really, really like about this book is that there are lines in here for me to interact with the material that I've just read, and things for me to set as action steps for me as I seek to bring about a spirit of grace and redemption among these jerks, and just help them gain some awareness, choose some new action, and then a spirit of accountability. So what's one thing, Rich, what's your one thing that you would encourage Work Positive Nation to do starting today to create the kind of positive work culture we're talking about here, so that we can know better how to emotionally intelligently work with that jerk at work?
Look at the companies, the divisions, the departments. What techniques, what strategies are they employing to prevent jerk behaviors? The easiest thing to do is you could simply install the no jerk rule. And the no jerk rule, very simple. It's like it sounds. It's, here at Acme Widget Company, we have a no jerk rule, and which says you're not allowed to be a jerk. And if you are a jerk, we're going to tell you that you're being a jerk, and the expectations that you'll stop. The other thing, to look at the culture as the culture is designed. The cultures could have been designed by the marketing department because it sounds good to the stockholders. Hopefully that's not the case, but that does happen. Hopefully it's a very, very thoughtful culture, collaborative, diplomatic, respectful by design, and then butt that up against what is actually occurring within the organization. Are we living the culture? Same thing if we have a code of conduct, if we have a code of ethics. It's real easy for organizations to slip. They have a great culture by design. They have strong ethics by design. They have great conduct examples by design. But again, are we following those? Maybe it's a case of, we need to get a little back on track. Our team meetings been a little rugged lately, and maybe a little too robust. So, we need to get back in the saddle. So those are just some of the things that an organization can do, but it takes very, very deliberate actions. A good, cohesive work environment where jerks are not allowed, jerks are not condoned. That takes deliberate actions. Becoming an employer of choice, the company where everybody wants to work for, that does not happen by accident. That takes leadership. It takes senior leadership with the help of middle leadership, with the help of human resources, with the help of the frontline team members to live the culture. Because, as I said earlier, the culture is the secret sauce. Make the culture work as designed. Make sure that no jerk behavior is allowed to interrupt it. And the magic happens. Productivity goes through the roof. Profitability lights up and improves everybody's future.
I love it. The book is The 1 Minute Jerk at Work. Rich Salon is the author. Get yourself a copy today. The link's in your show notes there over to Amazon so that you can get yours. Rich, I'm better for this conversation. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Dr. Joey, it is always my pleasure. And again, your show does such good. Please keep them coming.
Thank you, my friend. I'm so grateful you joined our conversation about creating positive work cultures that grow people and profits. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn today. Just search for Dr. Joey Fawcett, or you can click the link in your show notes. When you send your connection request, mention you're a Work Positive Podcast listener because I want to give you a free digital copy of my Work Positive Team Edition book. It's a $19.95 value, but I want to share it with you free because it contains practical strategies that I personally use with clients to transform toxic work environments into thriving cultures. We explore in that book how to create a positive work culture, and we do so again in every episode of this podcast. Our LinkedIn connection allows you and me to directly talk about your specific challenges, so feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. I personally read and respond to all those messages because I genuinely care about your work positive success. So go to LinkedIn and let's connect. Remember to mention you're a podcast listener to receive your free Work Positive Team Edition book. I look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the Work Positive Podcast.